Hello, everyone. My name is Jade King. This is my presentation on microaggression found in the cartoon television series The Simpsons. I will be analyzing examples of microaggressions in the long running TV show The Simpsons, mostly focusing on the portrayal of Apu. He is a beloved character, but very controversial. Of course, over the years, the character representation has been improved from the show starting in the 80s to transitioning to a more mild version of the stereotypes it previously was as they began catering to the more modern audience types. He typically is a depiction of South Asian immigrants in the United States. However, over time, many viewers and scholars have identified his portrayal as an example of several types of microaggressions that reinforce racial and cultural stereotypes. In The Simpsons, Apu is a hardworking immigrant running the Quickie Mart with a thick accent and exaggerated mannerisms. His most known catchphrase is "Thank you, come again." It is widely recognized but widely mocked due to the accent to produce the line. While the show was intended for humor, it has a deep cultural impact. For many South Asian viewers, Apu became the most visible and often the only representation of their culture on mainstream television. As a result, many people have experienced ridicule and stereotyping based on this fictional character. Um, for many years, he was voiced by a actor who was white before the show decided that it'd be more appropriate to find a South Asian actor. Um, Also, majority of the time, how he is dressed, his interactions with his wife, and the number of children they have is used as microaggression and stereotypes on what Americans believe Southern Asian families are like. The microaggressive tones shown throughout this television show include classism, body shaming, micro assault, micro invalidations, micro insults, and gender and class microaggression. Micro assault, it's overtly discriminatory or harmful behavior as it openly mocks immigrants as acceptable humor. The townspeople tend to joke about deportation and immigrants towards Apu. Micro insults are subtle communications that are still demeaning to one's identity. His exaggerated accent, the job chosen as the store clerk, and the cultural stereotypes. He's labeled as foreign or unintelligent. Micro invalidations are kind of messages that dismiss or minimize experiences of bias. The viewers are mostly told that it's just a joke when raising concern, and it does invalidate the real harm caused by the stereotypes. Other microaggressions in The Simpsons include racial and ethnic stereotypes against Apu, the Bumblebee Man, and Willie, gender and stereotypes with Marge, Lisa, and Miss Crabapple, classism and body shaming seen with Homer and Barney, and sexual orientation or the token individual such as Smithers or Carl. Tokenism. Carl is one of the few black characters that is often shown as Homer's coworker, but rarely developed beyond that. His presence sometimes serves to represent racial diversity without actually addressing their real experiences. Groundkeeper Willie experienced ethnic stereotyping. He's portrayed as angry, uneducated Scottish janitor with exaggerated traits suggesting a simplistic or comical view of the Scottish culture. Smithers is typically microaggressed in the form of sexual orientation. Early episodes often make jokes about his sexuality in very subtle and mockery ways, rather than normalizing any of his behaviors. Chapters 3 and 4 of Counseling the Culturally Diverse explains why this kind of portrayal happens and why it matters. Chapter 3 introduces the concept of multicultural competence, which includes developing awareness, knowledge, and skills when working with people from different cultural backgrounds. The writers of The Simpsons have lacked this awareness. Apu's character came from a stereotype rather than real experiences. Chapter 4 then expands on kind of microaggressions and the implicit bias. It shows how even when unintentional comments, jokes, or harmless portrayals can reinforce discrimination and racial stereotypes. The humor used with Apu reflects these biases and kind of sends a message about who belongs and who stands out in our United States American society. Both chapters stress cultural humility, the idea that we must continually reflect on our bias, listen to others, and grow in our versions of understanding. Applying these lessons to media when moving toward an authentic representation that respects all cultures while still providing comedy in a social setting. To reduce harm and promote inclusion, our text and what we have learned from this course recommends micro interventions, intentional actions that challenge these bias. First, authentic representation matters. When media includes writers, actors, and consultants from the cultural being portrayed, it allows for a richer or more respectful storyline, such as if they truly spoke to a South Asian writer, voice actor, in order to properly portray a poo, similar with other characters for sexuality, race, identity. Second, acknowledging harm can build trust. Um, the early voice actor's portrayal and later apology really kind of helped as he supported the recasting of a non white actor to portray the character he had voiced for so long, recognizing the stereotypes and the biases that had been created by the role he was hired for. Addressing the harm publicly, he corrected himself, understood he was wrong, formally apologized. Finally, promoting media literacy would help audiences think critically about what they watch. Recognizing stereotypes allows us to challenge bias rather than to absorb it passively and unintentionally incorporating it into our own lives. Thank you so much for taking the time to review my presentation.